What's up? It's Tom. Thanks for clicking on this video. Time to update my prospect list. I do this toward the start of every month. So this is going to have both our new 2026 draftees and the impact from the trade deadline. Speaking of which, glad that's out of the way. The trade deadline, a cute little distraction. Playoff chases, sure, if that does it for you, whatever. But let's get into the real, right? This is where it's at. This is what it all is about here, folks. The minor league system. Before we get going, I do want to call out a couple graduations because you won't see these guys on the list here. Kendry Rojas and Mike Paredes both just barely earned enough active days, service days to exceed the prospect status limit, exceed the point where they will be considered rookies next year as well. So congrats to both of those guys. So they are not going to be on this list. Kendry Rojas, had he been on the list, would have been my number one Twins pitching prospect. But moving on, there's also that note you saw. I'm not going to rank anybody in their age 27 season or higher. That's another quirk of my list. You won't see Aaron Sabato on there. And then guys have to be in full season ball for me to put him on my list. Anyway, Jaminardo Reyes was going to be one of those guys this month, but he got traded. And we did update our top 20 list at Limestone Pipeline in mid-July. So I did do kind of like a soft re-rank right after the draft. And Jaminardo Reyes was my number 18 prospect. That is with the draftees in there and without the trade guys taken out. All those other numbers, Dasan Hill, Sprock, Klein, Amick, Pena, and Agbayani, those were all the numbers from my personal list from July. So those were before the 2026 draftees were added in there. So just a kind of a couple points. Kylie Daniel of ESPN had Reyes ranked above Dasan Hill in his ranking of the best prospects who were traded at the deadline. Baseball America had them incredibly close and with the same overall grade. So there were, Dasan Hill and Jaminardo Reyes were pretty big departures from the system. This is still a very strong system, though. They need to continue to draft well. It's easy to, when you get a top 5 pick like a Vahn Lackey and a Walker Jenkins, that's easy. That's a slam dunk to get a big prospect into your system. But I think they did really well with Kalen Culpepper and Merrick Houston. We'll see, if they keep playing well as they go up the line, but I think for where they were drafted in the first round, I think those are really good picks. They need to continue to do that. Even when they're not picking at the top of the draft, they need to be grabbing good prospects. Having more international guys click would be transformative to this system. If they, they've carried a pretty good system with it getting next to nothing from their international signings. If they could just do a little bit of better job, that would be huge. Really, Jaminardo Reyes, it's a bummer for anybody who works in that department, I'm sure, that he got traded, but they did produce a guy who was able to be traded for a major league starting pitcher. So that's a pretty big feather in their cap still. They have not been able to do that of late. So even if the international guys, if they do a better job, maybe that doesn't translate directly to the major league club, but the stronger your system is, the more comfortable you're going to feel trading away guys like that. So you just have to be able to backfill when you trade guys away and feel like that you can consistently do that. Anyway, there is the 1 through 10. Yes, I have Vahn Lackey as my number 1 prospect. I don't think that's all that hot of a take, but I do see Walker Jenkins atop lists more often. Me and Jamie were split on that for our Limestone Pipeline ranking, and I didn't really put up much of a fight. We put Jenkins number 1. I think it's 1A and 1B, essentially is what I'm saying. But anything Walker can do, Vahn can do at least as well. And then Vahn is a catcher. He's a one-of-one type player. Walker Jenkins, as good as he is, a very complete player, a very high floor and high ceiling guy potentially, but he's going to be like one of the more complete outfielders in baseball. But there will be better even at his like, we're talking Walker Jenkins at his sort of maybe not peak, but like a 90 percentile outcome. There's still going to be guys who are better than Walker Jenkins in the outfield, just in the middle of a lineup in general. Vahn Lackey has the potential to be the best catcher in baseball, and he has the potential to be one of the most unique players of his his era. Like that's a ridiculous thing to say about a guy who's played like 5 pro games, I know. But and again, I think when you boil it down to tools, that's getting like way out there, with both of those guys. We're thinking way ahead. We're thinking again, dreaming on outcomes. But if we kind of bring the things back to reality here, I do think their base, skills, their base tools are not that different. And again, that I suppose that's sort of the tiebreaker for me is that Lackey's a catcher and Jenkins is either a pretty mid center fielder or a very good corner outfielder. And I think it's pretty easy to say which of those would be more valuable and more rare too. Merrick Houston moves up again. I've been a little bit higher on him from the get-go, and at this point it's like, what more could you ask from him? Seeing him down more towards 10 on a lot of lists surprises me. I do think some of the production at the plate that he's had, I can get behind the thought process that there's probably not a lot of like batted ball data that super supports some of the power in particular he's hitting for. But he can use the whole field. He can reach anything in the strike zone. He is just a very well-rounded hitter. Even if the power doesn't translate as he keeps moving up, there's still a lot to like. And the guy's stolen 40 bases on top of that. So even if you kind of say, okay, he's not good, that extra base power is going to come down a bit. If he can still get on base and steal bases, obviously the headlining with him is always his shortstop defense. So, again, what really more could you ask from Merrick Houston at this point? Riley Quick is now my number 1 Twins prospect, with both Kendry Rojas graduating and Dasan Hill being traded away. That is based off of his arm talent pretty much alone. Fastball's really good, slider's really good, getting one of the better strikeout pitchers in the minor leagues. He's being pushed hard, just to keep that in mind. He's in Double-A already in his first full pro season. That's aggressive for really anybody, but I think that's a lot more aggressive than we've seen the Twins be with pitchers as well. The results aren't great. I'm kind of giving him not like a free pass, but sort of taking that into account is how I would put it in trying to evaluate him right now. He's also had some blister issues and some other kind of hiccups like that, but I don't know. I don't know that it was a wise move to put him in Wichita, but credit on him for challenging a guy, which I think a lot of people would argue they don't do a lot of. So, Quick is still exciting. Brandon Winokur, I think he's underrated at this point. I think he's made some gains this season that a lot of places haven't properly accounted for at this point. A guy who's always had a high upside, and now a lot of his production is backing that up, and that production is in Double-A. On Waxman, a lot of people will probably be shocked to see I have him this high. Remember, this is a prospect list, not a proximity list. If you want to see the guys closest to the majors, just look at the AAA roster. This guy has outstanding upside. The Twins' 3rd-round pick, a right-handed starter out of Colorado, number 79 overall pick, but I believe he got the 58th biggest bonus, the 2nd biggest bonus of the class, keeping in mind he had that leverage as a high school guy to say, well, I'm just going to go to college, whereas, a lot of the other college guys, sure, they could have gone back a year, but it really would have hurt their draft stock. Then they really would have had no leverage on top of everything else. But also, if you want to just clear that slate away, he was the 31st pitcher taken. So, one of the better pitchers in the class, really filled out too between his junior and senior years of high school. Ethan Waxman, very excited about him. But moving on to 11 to 20, it's not like I don't believe in Carson Tinney, and it's not like I don't believe in Carson Tinney as a catcher. If I thought, a lot of people keep telling me, oh, he's not going to catch at all. It's like, maybe it gets to that point, because a lot of guys, as they move up the line, end up not catching. I still think Carson Tinney is going to develop as a catcher for a long time. You might say, oh, Vahn Lackey's in the way, or whoever, Eduardo Tate. They'll figure it out. And it's not like even guys who catch every day in the minors. They split things up pretty well. If you saw my draft reaction, wasn't really in love with that pick because it felt like the class is now pretty one-dimensional. But that's more of my view of the draft class. Looking at Carson Tinney as a prospect has nothing to do with that. It's totally outside of that sort of evaluation of how they did on draft day. Brett Renfro, another draftee, feels like his upside is pretty limited, but he also is very likely to stick as a starting pitcher. So, this is maybe kind of putting him at 15 is kind of hedging a bet a little bit. I could see arguments that he should be higher. I could also see arguments he should be lower. That is the 11 through 20. I do want to just call out Quentin Young. There's a couple of guys whose change, I've highlighted, Young over there in red. Just that I wanted to talk about. 55 starts at shortstop, 20 at third base, 9 at DH. He's committed 21 errors at shortstop and 7 more at third base. Swing and miss is like crazy. Keep in mind with Quentin Young, he has yet to face a pitcher who's younger than him. So he is facing more physically mature, more developed pitching. A lot of the guys in the Florida State League are college pitchers. So they've gone through a whole college career. Hindsight being 2020, though, Quinn Young should have started in the Florida Complex League. He should not be playing shortstop. I think that is potentially causing some challenges. He has a long to-do list for this offseason, but still a guy, his batted ball data is ridiculous. Again, swing and miss like crazy, but his hands are good, actually, for a guy his size. There is something there still, even though he has so many. The downside is terrifying, and his flaws are not just like minor flaws. I'm curious to see. I'm giving him a kind of a chance, keeping him in the conversation at least, until we see him come out and see how he adjusts to this for next season. Moving on to numbers 21 through 30. We get a couple more draftees here. Tommy Lepore, I think, would have been drafted a lot higher had he been healthy this season. Had a really good year last year and then just barely pitched this season for TCU. I'm intrigued by him. Giovanni Duran is a guy who just got promoted to Fort Myers in this kind of post-deadline activity. Was a productive hitter with the FCL Twins, a switch-hitting center fielder who can do a little bit of everything. So another guy, talked about Reyes and kind of how disappointing it was in that international signee picture that he got sort of taken away. Well, we got a guy kind of taking over his spot, essentially, coming in and joining Fort Myers' outfield, who's intriguing as well. Want to call out Luis Fragoza, in that gold. He's one of the big climbers on my list. Despite having all these draftees added, he still moves up quite a bit. One of the better sluggers in the Florida State League right now, but like an ultra aggressive hitter. Played some third base. He's played some outfield. I'm not sure where he's going to end up at the end of the day. But I'm not sure that's going to be really a strong point for him, but undeniable. You can't keep this guy down for too much longer, and I know a lot of people will have him higher than I have him. Steele Murdoch was the 5th-round pick. That's the final 2026 draftee you're going to see on this top 50, so nobody really in the second half here. He's a stuff over command guy, but that could be exciting. And then I did move Kyle DeBarge back up. I think that's more. I think I got a little too harsh on him last month. We'll see that. We'll say that. He's been adjusting some things. His stance is a bit different. I think he's trying to find a way back to that power that he hit for previously that kind of dried up last year. And, he does have 11 home runs after hitting 8 last season. So there's, the overall production's not great. He has hit better of late. We might look back next year and be like, oh, okay, there was an adjustment period happening while he was also trying to adjust to Double-A, and maybe things click eventually. Anyway, moving on to the numbers 31 through 40. Don't want to have much to say. A lot of these guys are hurt. Don't have much to say about a lot of them, but CJ Culpepper tumbles down my list. I was optimistic that he could be a successful bullpen transition. The early returns were solid, not spectacular, but that he really fell apart lately. He's walked 14 batters in his last 16 and a third innings. So just not throwing strikes at all. I can't justify having him any higher than that. And if anything, I might be charitable keeping him this high, really. Numbers 41 through 50. This section is always pretty unstable. There's so many guys, like in even the 31 through 40 in this range, and the guys who would be in like the 51 through 60, who are just incredibly close. Merritt Jones, Caden Kendall, and Irvin Nunez are the guys that have kind of bumped in. Of course, a lot of players taken out of this mix by the trade deadline, so these guys would not have made my top 50 otherwise. But Jones is having a really good year, especially of late. Caden Kendall's looked incredible since he's been promoted to Double-A. He's a guy that's missed a lot of time. I want to say former 5th-round pick. Then Irvin Nunez, I think he's the 6th catcher I'm sneaking in here on the list. Not all of them are going to stick at catcher. Irvin Nunez is absolutely a catcher. This guy can throw runners out. This guy can frame pitches. There is OBP floor. He takes walks. I'm not sure if there's much else there offensively. This is why it's good to go with a ranking, I think, because it sort of makes you say, well, how much do you like that guy? And that's how much I like Irvin Nunez. He's a guy I want to talk about. He's a guy I want to point out. But that wraps things up. Let me know if any questions you have, if there's any guys you're particularly interested in. Let me know if you disagree with anything I have on my list. And for more, again, mention Limestone Pipeline. We do have our own prospect list that's me and Jamie combined. And then also just tons of other content there. Jamie's released a couple of podcasts recently reacting to the trades and the trade hauls that it took to get them. So check that out. $4 a month for members, but you can be a free member too. And there's stuff on there we put out for free. Thanks for checking this one out. I appreciate you. We will talk again soon.